Yo, what's up everybody, Swillow here, and today we are making our first Pirate Warriors 4 video. So first off I want to talk about some of the gameplay mechanics, some of the differences compared to the previous games because a lot has changed. So I'm going to go over the basics, then I'll go over some kind of more advanced tricks that I've found so far. Okay, so first off we have our standard, square and triangle attacks, that pretty much what you expect from a Warriors game. And then we have the new jump. So on X, this is like the big new thing is there's air combat now. So when you jump normally, you just get this. But if you jump from an attack, like your square attack, you get this special cancel animation that launches enemies in the air with you. So you can do that from square attacks, and you can do this from like triangle attacks as well, the triangle charges. So there you go. And then once you're in the air, you basically have the same sort of strings that you would normally have on the ground, just in the air. Now, one of the most important things about air strings is you're usually always going to have one attack that dives you back to the ground. And this is like a really important attack to know for each character, because this is going to help you like more seamlessly blend ground and air combat together. So that's like your first attack you really have to learn and play around, and I'll go into more detail on that later. But just keep that in mind that in the air you're going to just have like standard attacks like this. They're just going to be attacks and they're going to keep you in the air, but then you're going to have some sort of dive attack that puts you back to the ground. We have R1s, the new R1s here, they're on cooldown, so if you look over at the right, you can see I have, sorry. You have a skill tied to one of your 4 buttons, square, X, circle, triangle, and these skills pretty much fall under 3 categories, either your Muso special attacks, just straight up attack skills, or buff skills. And you can cancel into these skills. Basically the way these skills refill, so let me just use one. This is my R1 square, the UFO. So once you use one, it'll refill as you're fighting enemies. So as you can see, I'm hitting enemies here, and it's recharging. So they recharge at varying rates. Some of them recharge faster, some of them recharge slower. So you have to keep that in mind. You can't just kind of like run away and wait for your cooldowns to come back. So honestly, to call them cooldowns is probably inappropriate because they're not on a cooldown as much as they're on a resource. They have their own individual resource, kind of like super meter you have to build up. And some of them can be used in the air. They'll have a feather next to them on the menu if they can be used in the air. So like I have this one that can be used in the air. And then I have some that even put you airborne. So like my triangle one, this will actually put me airborne so that I can go straight into an air string after it. So they all have different little properties. You kind of have to experiment with them and see what the ones you have equipped do, or just kind of mess around with them and see what works best for your character. So next up I want to talk about the new dash. We have power dash on circle. And there are some differences between character types, like speed types, sky types. Sky types, for instance, they can hold the button and go pretty much forever till they use up all their stamina. So as you can see, you have this green bar over there, over your character that represents your stamina. And that's what the dash is on. So you can get varying lengths based on how long you hold the button. So if you see, if I just tap the button, I'll get a quick dash that will use less stamina, which this is ideal like when you're trying to keep combo chains going. You just want to do a quick tap to use a little bit of stamina for cancel purposes. Maybe if you knock the enemies far away, you can hold the button and dash further, but you're going to use more stamina in the process. So you have to keep that in mind. Also, when you launch enemies into the air and you dash, your character will actually go airborne. I think they have to be alive for that to work, but let me see if I can get this to trigger. Yeah, the enemy might have to be alive, but sometimes when you launch enemies airborne and you dash, even though you're on the ground, your character will automatically go into the air. If you've played Gundam Muso, Gundam Warrior games, it's kind of like that. That's like the best reference I can make in terms of how the power dash can work in this game, is it kind of has that thruster homing kind of vibe to it. So next up I want to talk about some more intricate tricks I figured out. Stamina's a really big deal in this game. So the only way to start refilling stamina is by going into a completely neutral state where you're not attacking or anything. So as you see when Luffy's just moving around or standing still, his stamina will refill. The only problem is that if you're using a lot of cancels and you're just like in the heat of battle, it's not always practical to go into a neutral stance, or you may not want to. You may just want to keep like relentless offense going. So I'm going to show you some tips that can kind of allow you to play more relentless and not have to worry so much about your stamina. So the first one is, if you're in the air, first one is I want to point out jump cancels. Jump cancels don't use stamina. So let's say you use a nice ground string. Going into jump cancel is going to allow you to do a lot more attacks without using any stamina, as opposed to like using a ground string and then dash canceling and then doing a ground string again. You can try to be more efficient and do a ground string, then go into an air string. But you know, that's always going to be situational, because maybe sometimes you just don't want to be in the air. And like I said, once you get to the air, you want to know your dive attack so you can get back to the ground and start refilling your stamina. Because once you're in the air, you're not going to refill stamina. Now, some of the tricks I have for refilling stamina is, once you get into the air and you go to the ground, do a quick power dash so that you can get back into a neutral state quickly. So let me find some enemies so I can kind of juggle them and use up my stamina, and I'll explain like the whole process. Alright, so I'm just gonna do some random stuff and use up all my stamina. Now, I actually messed up there. Now, okay, so that was an example of me messing up. What I did there is I used up all of my stamina, right? But I was still airborne. So what I needed to do there is, when I ran out of stamina, I had to make the very next attack I do a ground attack, so that I can get back to the ground and I can start restoring my stamina. So right now I'm in red stamina. I'm just going to do a ground attack so I can get back quickly, and then I can start restoring stamina, as you can see. And if you don't use all your stamina, like I said, you can do the ground attack and then you can dash and then you can get back into a neutral state quickly as well. You don't have to wait until you get all the way into red. Now, you can also do something, this is like sort of a more intricate trick I found out, but when you go into your awakening, you refill your stamina to max automatically. So watch, I'm going to use up all my stamina. Alright, so I used a lot of my stamina, I went into awakening, and now I have full stamina. So the cool thing about this is that when you go into awakening, you can disable it whenever you want. So you can go into awakening, get the full stamina boost, and then you can just disable it. And what happens when you disable your awakening, if you look at my awakening, which is the one on the right, that's my R1 circle, you can see the bar is still filled up. It doesn't use up the whole bar. So the bar only uses as much as when you stay in the awakening. So if you go into awakening just to get the stamina boost and then you turn it off, not only will it almost be full, but you're gonna have full stamina, which means you can sort of create this loop where you're going in and out of awakening simply to get the full stamina boost. Now obviously this means if you're playing like this, you're not going to be able to actually use your awakening because you're going to be saving it just to get stamina. So you kind of have to balance both ways. Sometimes you want to get stamina, sometimes you actually want to use your awakening. And sometimes you don't have to like just turn it on and off automatically. Like sometimes if you're really like efficient, if you play super efficient, you can use up a lot of your awakening. You can use up like half of it or even like 75% of it, and then by the time you go out and you start fighting enemies, you might fill all the way back up. Just depends on like the situation and how efficient you are with your stamina usage. But yeah, let me kind of show an example of just looping stamina regen over and over. So I'm gonna go into Awakening, get full stamina. I'm gonna disable it. So as you can see, I already have my Awakening back. So I'm out of stamina. I'm gonna go into Awakening, get full stamina back. And there you go. You just create this endless loop of getting full stamina on Awakening activation and then turning it off. And you just keep that offense going. So that's one really cool trick that I found out for managing stamina. Now, this is more character specific, but someone like Luffy can actually do something. He can taunt cancel, right? Where he puts his hat on. So if you see when I do my dive attack and I put my hat on, this basically cancels the recovery. And that just seems like a sort of like a trick or like a gimmick. But there's actually some benefit to this because it allows my stamina to start restoring instantly. So watch my stamina. As you can see, the second I cancel, my stamina will restore instantly. Now watch if I don't cancel. So you see Luffy kind of bounces off the ground and then falls back on his feet. Then the stamina starts refilling. But if you do the little taunt cancel, it refills instantly. Now not every character is capable of doing this, but this is like a neat trick specifically for Luffy, and there's probably other characters that can do it. I just have to actually take the time to experiment and find out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me just kind of go fight a little bit, and you can kind of pay attention to how I'm applying some of these strategies. Alright, here we go. Got a nice crowd here. So use some jump cancels. That wasn't a good one though. Gonna try to do like a really nice air juggle here. I'm gonna go into Awakening to get my stamina back. And cancel out of that. Here's the taunt cancel. Now R1s, I didn't really talk about this, but you cannot jump cancel out of R1s. R1s can only be canceled with dash. So keep that in mind. It's like, let's say if you run out of stamina, it's not going to be ideal to cancel into R1s in most cases because they have a lot of recovery. But that just depends. It depends on if you need to be able to cancel out of it urgently or not. If you don't need to cancel out of it urgently, then you're fine, but if you're in a situation where you kind of need stamina, most R1s do have a lot of recovery, so keep that in mind if you're not able to dash cancel it. So there was an example of me doing a charge attack. It launched the enemies airborne, and when I dashed after them, I went airborne after them. So that's pretty much it. Not much else. I mean, the rest of the stuff I could talk about would be more character specific, but I want to save that for when I do character specific videos. But that's kind of like the fundamentals of the game. If you have any questions, or if you have any content suggestions you would like to see, leave a comment below. Thank you for watching.